All right, please rise for the September 6th Northampton County Council meeting. The Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Warner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Zemble, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mr. Dietz.
Here.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Kraft.
Here.
Mr. McGee.
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Here.
Mr. Warner.
Here.
And Ms. Rinsky.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes of August 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Motion to approve by acclamation.
Second by Lori Vargo Hefner. All in favor?
I tried.
Aye.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is courtesy of the floor. I have 3 people signed up. I have Mr. David R. Leggett from Little Creek Road. Mr. Leggett? Evening.
How you doing?
As brief as I possibly can. And I want to thank everybody that's taken the time to talk to me. Mr. Cusack and Ms. Fargo Hefner spent quite a bit of time after the last meeting, and I really appreciate the time they spent with me. At our last meeting, we had discussed the appointments of county employees to the General Purpose Authority, and Mr. Kraft had instructed the solicitor to research the legality of those appointments. And I'm curious if there's any update on that.
I have not gotten an update.
Thank you. Also, at our last meeting, Mr. Kraft challenged me and advised me that I was misinformed, and when I reminded him that he had voted in favor of the P3 project, Mr. Kraft vehemently denied that he'd supported the P3 project and stated that he had voted against the P3 project 100% of the time. It's important to correct the record on this. I have here a copy of the March the 3rd of 2016 County Council meeting confirming that Mr. Kraft voted in favor, as everyone else did. I'm very concerned, and I think we should all be concerned, that he has misrepresented his voting record, and I'm not sure why. It is also, therefore, fair to inquire what else has not been stated correctly. Perhaps most importantly, as acknowledged at our last meeting, the administrative code requires that the council approve the adding or removing of any of the bridges to the P3 project. In light of that, the Township of Lower Mount Bethel, as you all know, because you got a copy of the resolution last time, has unanimously resolved that the P3 project includes certain bridges that should and shouldn't be, and I want to keep that in the top of everybody's mind. I don't need to burden you with the details of all of that. The failure to include the essential bridges and leave out the ones that don't need to be is extremely important, and that proposal without amendments poses a real and substantial threat to the environment along our road and the Pennsylvania Scenic Byway, and the imposition of an enormous hardship to the residents. The best information supports the township's resolution, and we would like to know why the council would possibly ignore that resolution and the plea of the residents to go along with that. And I really hope to stay abreast of that as it develops. The county, by the way, has denied the Lower Mount Bethel Township's right to know request with regard to the bridge reports and to why and how those bridges were selected and how they were evaluated. And that will be appealed vigorously, and reminds us of the current situation in Reading, Pennsylvania. If the council decides not to abide by the township resolution, it would be at minimum, in my opinion, arbitrary and capricious. There's no valid reason not to do so, and the failure to do so poses a very significant threat of additional litigation. I'd like to remind all that the last time this was brought up in front of a judge, that it cost the county well in excess of $1 million in penalty and legal expenses. They had $125,000 for 10 years that was added onto the P3 project. I'm sure you all know this. I just want to make sure that we have it open and in front of everybody as we go through this. I really hope that everyone here decides to do the right thing with this, and I really appreciate everyone's time. And if you've got any comments, I'll take it off the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person is Jeanette Leggett from Little Creek Road. Jeanette?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'm curious about, I know, oh, sorry. Come up. Yeah, gotta come up, apologize. Sorry. Again, I'm Jeanette Leggett from Little Creek Road. I guess the only thing I'm wondering about is, and I know, as we were told last time when we were here, that you folks aren't here to answer our questions. So I'm going to put this question to the air. I guess my question is, what happens then when we have questions that we're seeking answers to, and we come to you, questions like maybe why there was this misrepresentation of the way Mr. Kraft voted. My question is, how do we get our questions answered if you're not here to answer our questions? And I guess you can't answer that. So I don't know if I have to write to the morning call or email people or what, but we have a lot of questions here. And we just, as I said last time, we just want answers. And you guys are busy people, you volunteer your time, you work real hard, and you don't need to have extra work on your shoulders. So anytime someone wants to find a way to answer maybe why Mr. Kraft explained how he voted when that was not how he voted, or we're being denied information about our bridges, or why the report tells us our bridge is good, you say it's bad, I'll go away, show me it's bad, I'll make the coffee and the donuts for the guys working on the bridge, I want it fixed if it's a problem. So I'm in a quandary here. If you won't answer questions, we have questions, and yet they're not getting answered. So if anyone, I know you're not supposed to answer questions, but if anybody would like to answer a question, any of these questions Mr. Leggett brought up, if anybody would like to answer a question at any time, it'd be wonderful. And it would also save you all time and save us time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next person is Eric.
So no answers. Okay.
Pardon me? Okay. Anybody else wish to address County Council? Courtesy of the floor? Seeing none, next thing we have on the agenda is the County Executive's Report. Mr. McClure.
Thank you. So on or about July 1st, we instituted a program for our employees who are covered by our health insurance called Teledoc, where you can download an application to your smartphone and visit a doctor from your phone without having to actually be seen by a doctor other than on your phone. And we were very pleased. What's our enrollment up to now? About 542? Something like that. Yeah, something above 500 of our employees, myself included. I have the app on my phone. We've used it in our house. And I'm happy to report to you today that we have already saved $68,000 in medical insurance claims. So think of that as money that actually comes off the money you budgeted for health insurance in the county. It's an average savings of $517 per visit every time an employee seeks their medical advice through Teledoc as opposed to going in to an office. We anticipate when we have the program live for at least a total calendar year, that will save at a minimum $100,000 off the health insurance, and it could be as much of $250,000 a year if we can continue to encourage our folks to subscribe to Teledoc and use it where appropriate. So we are really excited about that, and we thought we'd share that news with you because it's an important change, and we're saving money around here for once. The ill-conceived, poorly thought out, horribly executed initially P3 bridge project update. As you know, you have paid about $7.5 million in milestone payments in 2 years for the project. You were originally supposed to have 10 bridges delivered to you by the end of the year. That got reduced to 9. As you know, one bridge was hurriedly rehabbed last year before the end of the year. This year, 3 bridges are substantially done. There were supposed to be 5 bridges done. by August 31st. 3 are substantially completed now. The target of 9 bridges being completed at the end of this year will most likely not be met. We're hoping for 6 or 7 bridges to be completed by the end of the year. So it's not as rapid as it was originally intended to be. And I think the real problem we have here, when you consider that you've already paid $7.5 million for the project, is that there's no funding mechanism. So the total project originally was $38 million and change. It's if we don't manage some savings from moving some bridges out, it'll be in excess of $40 million. And I'm going to give you an example of why I believe that it was poorly thought out, and it's in the utility relocations. So as you know, you are responsible for paying for the utility relocations, and we have one bridge a bridge whose number I will not name right now, that has a large carrier's fiber optic cable near it that needs to be relocated. And the initial estimates that we've heard are in the range of $500,000 to do the relocation of the cable so that the bridge can be repaired. That relocation is almost as much as the anticipated cost of doing the bridge. So you can see how these relocation costs that you are paying for, that are outside of the overall contract of the P3, can add up in a hurry, and will have us around $40 million. So one of the real challenges for us going forward is going to be actually paying for these bridges. And it's something that I think good government, which we're all very interested in, it requires us to start thinking about now how we're going to do that. So that's all I have on that. Yes, sir.
Ask you a question?
Sure.
I came into this with this P3 project as you did, and with other council members. I mean, I've seen a lot of things. This, to me, was one of the greatest bait and switches that I've seen probably in county government. When all is said and done, I know we contracted for a specific amount of money to get a number of bridges, and I know some changes are being made, and it's been referred to by other folks. Excuse me. Do you have any sense, or does Public Works have any sense at this point, since they didn't really account for the true costs of this entire project, how much beyond the contracted amount the county may end up spending? Do we have any sense of that other than more?
There's an approximation.
I don't accept Mr. Langen or Mr. Lucius's numbers on anything, and that's one reason why they're no longer involved. So if anybody wants to bring that up, I don't want to hear it. Go ahead.
I think it's going to come in around 38. I think it's going to come in around the original contract price, presuming there's a reduction with respect to the bridges that have been taken out.
But you did say there's overcosts that weren't accounted for.
So it'll be about 38. It'll be about a wash.
So the actual number of bridges you feel, I'm sorry, maybe I missed this. How many do you think we're going to do?
28 or 29.
Oh, as opposed to the, how many
33.
were originally? 33. Oh, okay. So
the additional relocation costs will probably
that'll be absorbed by doing that.
Right.
All right. Thank you. That was my main point.
12 of the 33 bridges were structurally deficient.
So the ones that were definitely deficient.
12.
And those will be fixed.
Yes.
I know some were just.
One might come out.
There was some dubious accounts of some of the bridges that allegedly needed to be fixed,
right,
which seemed to me to pay padding for the contractor. But so, excuse me, the ones that are definitely in bad shape are going to be fixed.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, if there aren't any other questions, we'll quickly get through this PowerPoint. I don't like PowerPoints, but I think we are coming up on an opportunity to purchase the Human Services Building, which, as you know, we lease. Steve, how do I advance this?
Hit the mouse.
What is a triple net lease?
Hey.
One of the worst leases you can ever get into.
Okay, what? So, why are we asking the question, what is a triple net lease? Because
Pass this
that's
down, please.
the lease we're in. I know that Bob, since people are talking about how people voted tonight, Bob voted against the Human
Geothermal.
Services bill. Bob was the only no vote, I think.
Yes,
I
sir.
voted for it. Mr. Cusick was here. Were you here? He voted too.
I voted for it.
Yeah, Ken voted for it. Okay, so now we do the roll call of who voted for it? All right. So what's a triple net lease? The landlord gets paid by the tenant a net rental payment that is a bit lower than market rate. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. And then the landlord usually builds to suit for a long-term tenant. Well, that's good. And if you've been in our human services building, while it's not perfectly built and designed, it really does meet our needs. So we have to be fairly contented with that. And the landlord risk is early termination in an empty building. Well, in our context with human services, that wasn't much of a risk. The tenant pays lower rent, but the tenant pays for maintenance, pays insurance, and pays taxes.
It's just terrible.
We are a tenant that pays taxes to ourselves. So here's what we pay now. We pay rent of $88,223.97 per month, or $1.05 million per year. That is significant rent. We pay approximately $190,000 in taxes per year. Usually we don't pay any taxes. And we fund all of the maintenance of the building. So, we're coming up on March of 2019, and there is an option, as you all know, in the lease to purchase the Human Services building. So the future purchase. So the cost of the purchase in 2019 will be $14,468,731. With the rent we've already paid, it will be $19 million. The cost in March of 2024, the next time the option can be exercised, is $16,370,041 with approximate rent, a total cost of $26.55 million. You're seeing a trend here, right? Mm-hmm. And then in March of 2029, we could pay for the building with $18,521,199, with the rent making it approximately a $34 million building. So you can see that if you're going to purchase it, the fiscally sound option here is to purchase it in March of 2019. Otherwise, if you don't choose to purchase it in March of 2019, what you want to do is just go to the end, and you have a purchase price of $1, but you had paid $32.9 million. We think that, we've looked at this pretty closely. We think the building probably appraises in the neighborhood of, what, 16 million? 15 or 16 million on its own. If you consider what the construction costs had we built it on our own, plus whatever interest we would have paid on the bonds we would have floated to build the building, you are probably in the neighborhood of $19 million. So in that regard, you know, it's a matter of how you got there. It's a question of the policy that you would have wished to follow, but I think in the end, it's probably around $19 million. It's probably a wash. It was just a policy choice at this time.
Right.
If we purchase it in March 2019. If you go past that, that will clearly not be the case. No, the building won't appreciate that fast, although we believe it's going to appreciate beyond the $19 million that we're going to pay for it if we exercise that option. So I wanted to begin the conversation about this to get a sense from council. We're going to have a very definitive plan for you about this in the very near future, but I thought it important that we just start the conversation and the debate, if we have to have one, about what to do about this going forward. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
The new morgue, It has a new name, I'm sorry. I
It's a
called
fore-
it
It's
a
Forensic
forensic
Center,
center.
I'm sorry, Forensic Center.
I would not consider building a morgue. I would, however, consider
forensic
building a
center.
forensic center.
Okay, semantics being what they are.
Semantics.
Okay, so the Forensic Center, the costs are going to be probably less than what our human service building was? Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
It won't be as big a building, I don't think.
okay, all right.
And we, I know council for years and years and years has sat through presentations about potential forensic centers. I think there's going to be another one, and I believe that what you're going to see, it's a smaller building.
Yeah, Zach had a Taj Mahal that he had presented us years ago, but that's scaled down quite a bit, I guess. Okay.
It's been scaled down.
Okay. And-
Just,
Sure, Mr. Dees.
so where the building is, we'll own the building and the land underneath it? It's not just the,
Yeah, we'll own
for the human
everything.
services, the land and everything?
Yes.
And
Own everything.
Full
And
on
then-
it all, yes.
then we do have that money set aside for it, correct?
They're not enough.
Where are we at with that? Do you know?
We're around 14.2.
Okay.
So we're short.
Wait a minute. So we're at 14.2, but we're going to save 200,000 a year in taxes.
Yes,
So we're at 14.4.
yes.
So we have the purchase price for the building. Now we'll save 200,000 a year from going forward, from March forward all the time.
Yeah,
Well,
but you
1.2
can't, you can't buy the building with future savings.
Right, I know, but there will be future
But you can
savings that were
justify it
enacted,
with
so it'll be
future
great.
savings.
Right.
It was a great idea, Ron. You can be recognized if you have something relevant.
I didn't
to add.
hear you recognize yourself. So you're going to be presenting this as part of the budget, I
Yes.
assume, when you come forward. First of all, I support it. It's a great idea to buy the building. I mean, I stood
I
where
haven't
you...
told you what I'm doing yet, but
Well, I assume we're buying the building. I would hope we're buying the building. We shouldn't
Seems
have
like
leased
the
it to
government.
begin with. I stood there in 2010. I had advocated for a building 10 years before that, but you notice the big building next door to us got built instead. But we outgrew the need for a human services building because staff is lower than it's been, and it continues to contract out services. But that was a policy decision. I was shocked that it was a lease. It's sort of like what the feds do when they fight wars and don't put it in the budget. But nonetheless, it sounded good. We got a building technically almost for free. But it's a good idea. I mean, 30 years. I love the fact that after 29 years, we can buy it for $1 after we've spent $33 million by then for an obsolete, boxy building where there's duplicates set empty, sitting here, there, and everywhere. I would say that we should have at least put in the lease. He gives us $1 to take it off his hands. But nonetheless, I don't know what the total plan is, but I support it if it means telling Mr. Gentile that the county had been very, very good to him, but no longer we're going to take the building off his hands, and thank God, if that's your plan.
Thank you, Mr. Heckman.
That was very relevant.
If everyone's finished with the building, I just have an off-the-wall
I'm not.
question
I'm
that
not.
makes my blood pressure rise
I'm not
every
done.
time I come in this building.
Peg's
through
not,
the-
Bob's not done
Okay,
with the
go
Just
ahead.
building.
one thing, okay? I just looked at the budget for 2018 for what was budgeted. We had $14,566,700. So if we're looking at 14's 468, we're okay. That's right, that's something,
I think part of that is interest projection, and I don't know if we met that target.
oh, that's not it? That's not, it's not in here? Or-
There's projected interest.
Yes,
So that's what's budgeted, not exactly, I think there's interest in that revenue.
okay, all
I
right.
believe.
Ken,
Tried to make it a better
a
point.
specific question about this. I have a specific question.
I'm sorry
Yes.
about that.
So that's a
Thank you.
budgeted number? you're
Yes.
It's just a quick
Yeah,
question.
well, I would
Hold
be
on.
skeptical about
Yeah,
that.
all right, okay.
Is that it, Mr. Warner?
That's it?
Mr.
Mrs.
Kuzic?
Ferraro had a point.
Just-
No, she
oh,
has a
she's
question
got
about something
something.
else.
I got
you know.
something else.
Mr. Kuzic?
I did support the lease, and I think it's important that we look back at the context. You would all agree, certainly Mr. McClure, that the Wolf Building was a dump.
I agree.
And the Bechtel Building was insufficient for our needs. I agree with you, the triple net lease was not the greatest thing in the world. However, at the time, it was the most feasible way that we could move forward with the project. And I know Mr. Kraft worked hand in hand with the Stouffer administration to make it happen. I think it's a terrific facility. And the plan at the time was to, or at least my understanding was that we would exercise this option in 2019, and I'm hopeful that we pursue it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzic.
My memory is the same as yours.
Yeah, we had that.
A quick question.
Mr. Warner, he has, I mean, not Mr. Warner, geez, sorry. Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
Sorry, Bob. What
Mr.
about
Heckman.
sorry, Ron? Anyway, yeah, Wolf Building and that, I never said we shouldn't keep people in there. That building was shot almost when we bought it. But the thing is, I always said, if you're going to build a building, build a government center instead of just a building for a few people. But that's neither here nor there. I agreed with Mr. Warner's position back in the day. Is there a possibility of expanding the use of that? I've gone through the building, and I know there's people in it. But do you think we'll see other functions being, I know talk has been that you can go there to pay for certain things possibly instead of coming to Easton. Do you see expanded use? I know economic development's there, Veterans Affairs there, Human Services. Is there a possibility of that happening?
The answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Because we did kick around the idea of moving voters there.
Okay.
We ultimately rejected that idea because voters needs to be in the county seat.
Yeah.
So there was some notion that we'd have a little kiosk down in Revenue, and I rejected that because I didn't think that was a wise decision. So, yeah, the answer is yes. It's possible we'll be able to do other because there's a great deal of conference space out there.
Okay, Peg wanted to ask a question.
I just want to talk about something that is very low on the priority list, and we have many big issues that we deal with. But landscaping and grounds. When you walk into the employee entrance, stop laughing. When you walk into the employee entrance, that whole planting bed there, someone spent good money to plant 3 trees, 2 of which now have succumbed to the ivy that is out of control all around it. The weeds are higher than the plantings, and I just truly feel, I know I keep my yard edged, mulched, and weed-free, and I really would like to see a little bit more attention and love, and that ivy is overgrowing everywhere. So that's my speech, and I will come and help do it.
No, you don't have. You don't have to, Mrs.
Thank you,
Ferraro.
Peg. She's a great gardener.
We actually, Mrs. Ferraro.
It's not my job.
We have been talking about that.
It's awful. And you know how much I pay for those berries that are there? I'm going to come and cut them and pay for something. I paid $12 for a bunch of those winter berries.
What?
Okay.
So I'm going to take some. I'll trim it and I'll keep the
Did we accept your
cuttings.
gift as a county council?
Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, I just have to tell you, it makes my blood boil when I come in.
Thank you, Peg. Thank you, Mr.
Sir, that's all I have.
Thank you for a very enlightening county executive report. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peg, for the berry anecdote. Ron, for everything you contribute. All right, next thing on the agenda is old business. Is there any old business to discuss in front of county council tonight? Do you have old business?
I do not.
Okay, good. Seeing none, go to the next thing. New business, introduction of an ordinance entitled an ordinance repealing ordinance number 499-2009, an ordinance entitled an ordinance authorizing the establishment of the Northampton County Gaming Revenue and Economic Redevelopment Authority pursuant to the Economic Development Financing Law for the purpose of exercising any and all purposes and powers permitted by that law and the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act, fixing the authority's term of existence and authorizing appropriate county officials to take such action as is required to effectuate the creation thereof. I need a sponsor for this ordinance. Mr. Dietz, second.
I'll do it.
Mr. Okay. Lori Vargo Hefner. We'll just swap it all around. All right. The public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the September 20th, 2018 meeting. Next thing on the agenda is consideration of a multimodal transportation fund grant resolution. Mr. McGee, could you introduce the resolution, please?
It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that it does hereby support the request for the Multimodal Transportation Grant Fund of $300,000 from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for pedestrian safety improvements and streetscape enhancements at the Northampton County Courthouse Complex. Be it further resolved that the applicant does hereby designate Director of Public Works Mike Amelie and the Director of the Department of Community and Economic Development, Tina Smith, as the officials to execute all documents and agreements between the County of Northampton and the Commonwealth Financing Authority to facilitate and assist in obtaining the requested grant. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Is there any discussion from County Council on this resolution? Tara?
Mike Amelie's here. Can he just tell us a little bit about what this grant's going to go towards? I mean, besides, it's kind of general, pedestrian safety.
It's pretty, it's pretty explanatory.
Ken's going to lose his bet.
Yeah, Mr. Amelie would be happy to explain what this is for.
Sure.
Thank you.
The genesis of this grant application kind of started earlier this year. Tina Smith and I had met with Greater Eastern Development Partnership as well as representatives from the City of Easton. They're strongly pushing to improve the streetscape in the downtown Easton area, and they would love to see County of Northampton continue their efforts in enhancing our streetscape. So this grant application essentially, it boils down to enhancing pedestrian safety. There are a number of curb ramps around the courthouse complex or lack thereof, where there's just full height curb and could create a pretty dangerous situation for someone in a wheelchair. So
that goes into ADA
correct
compliance.
Yes,
okay.
We'd be looking to just increase the ADA compliance of the sidewalks and intersections around the courthouse. As you know, there's also been a ongoing pedestrian safety issue with the to provide a safe crossing of Washington Street, and with the proposed work of the additional parking lot where the Militis building currently sits, there's going to be an increased need for a safer pedestrian crossing at that location. As part of the grant, we'd also like to look into installing more decorative lighting and some landscaping enhancements around the courthouse as well.
There I go.
Kenny, I have a question.
Thank you. Does that answer?
Granted.
Hold it. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I thank you because I just wanted to know what it was
Okay,
going
thank
for.
you. This money is coming from the Commonwealth Financing Authority for this purpose, so it's not going to affect us in any way. So,
May I
thank
ask
you.
a question?
You have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When did you bet on? What time?
Go ahead. With your question.
Anyway, the thing is, so the main thing is, I'm sorry, the main thing is that the crossing where the Militis is going to be in the parking, that will be, I know that was a bone of contention, and Easton said you can't do it, we'll be liable. It's a stupid thing not to do because people cross there anyway, and I don't agree necessarily that we're liable for anything anyway. If somebody trips on the sidewalk, we're liable. So, I mean, that will be addressed, number one, right? And I agree with Mr. Kraft, actually. I'm not negative on everything. This is a wonderful idea. And that's what part of what drove me before, or in the earlier topic, was anywhere where we can partner with the county seat, whether it's buildings or projects like this, I'm all for it. So absolutely, 110%, Mr. Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Heckman. Anybody else, or shall we go to a vote?
Just a quick comment. The grants from the Commonwealth Financing Authority tend to be political in nature at times. So it would be my recommendation that we send copies of this to our state representatives and senators to get them involved, as well as the governor's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
And Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Passes by vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you.
People come from.
Council just grew like huge. My God. Yeah, we need an amendment for the 7th. All right. So we have, for the 16 council members that are present, consideration of a resolution approving the reprogramming of the 2018 hotel tax grant to the Community Action Committee of the Lehigh Valley for the general marketing and branding of efforts in the Slate Belt region. Mr. McGee, could you please introduce the be it further resolved or resolves?
Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby approve the reprogramming request, and the NCDCED is authorized to prepare any necessary amendments to existing agreements.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Is there any discussion on this grant for, seeing none? Call for the vote, please.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dees.
Yes.
And Mr. Ferraro.
Here, yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Is there any other new business to discuss, County Council, tonight? Seeing none. Next thing on the agenda is council committee reports. Are there any council committee reports? None on that side. Any on this side? Seeing Mr. Warner.
Just real fast. Graysdale Family Fest, Tuesday, September 11th, 4 to 6 p.m. Rain date, September 12th.
Well, okay.
And the foundation, the Friends of Graysdale Foundation will have a booth there for donations. We've already donated money to the volunteers for Graysdale this past year, and there will be more coming. So
What time is that?
4 to 6.
4 to 6. Okay.
Yeah.
It is the best.
Any other committee reports? Seeing none. Any council liaison reports? Ms. Zirinsky.
I went to the Farmland Preservation meeting.
Is your mic on?
It is.
Okay.
Okay, so I went to the Farmland Preservation meeting, and apparently one of the farms that has taken 3 years to preserve is now preserved. So that was like a standing ovation, the Kleintop Farm. So that was huge. We've also gone through the list, and properties 7 through 11 are going to go up for preservation as well. So.
Perfect. All the preservation we can do is great. Anything else?
No.
Mr. Deeds.
So the airport had their groundbreaking for the new hangar, which I think would be great for attracting new business and be competitive in New York and Philadelphia market. Both there's obviously the revenue of the airplanes coming in. There's a lot of jobs that go with it. So I think that's good. And just a little separate note on the backpack drive that the council funded for our church was a couple weeks ago down in Bethlehem. They gave out 1,800 backpacks along with haircuts, socks, underwear, all supplies. And 500 of them, of the backpacks, went up in the sleep belt area. So, let everyone know that we're, they do it every year, and it's, really impactful with it. So,
Great news. Mr. McGee, you got anything?
Yeah, Lehigh Valley Planning met last Thursday, Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and they're going to be scheduling a series of hearings coming up in this month and early October. And the purpose for the hearings are to help the township leaders, city leaders, and people identify, where there's problems to get the grant applications filled out, to identify how to identify what they have, to start the process. And we're going to try to make it, they're encouraging everybody to try to get involved. So, because if you don't apply for the grant, you get no money. So you should at least be at the hearing meetings, and we're hoping for a good turnout there. So we're going.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Mr. Heckman, you didn't have any liaison reports. Thank you.
I have 2. Mental health, early intervention, and developmental disabilities meets quarterly. We just met on Tuesday. They're at the beginning of their budget year, so everything's up and running. They have filled most of the positions that we've granted them, so they're looking forward to having all those people in place and picking up the slack. Tiffany has adjusted very nicely to the job, and so things are moving along there. Always keeping their eyes open for grant opportunities, and that's a segue into my jail advisory because they're working closely with us on the Stepping Up initiative. Mr. Dietz and I met on that subcommittee today. We're going to have them come and present to us at the Human Services meeting in 2 weeks so that we can give you an update on what we're doing with that. The Jail Advisory Board met last Tuesday in August. The dog is here and she is in training. I have not met her yet, but I'm very excited. And the jail's moving along. It's still open for business.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports?
Wait, Tara has one.
Can I just add?
Another liaison report?
No, I want to add something to the airport authority report. Was that? I know I'm a board member. Can I comment? I think it's very significant what I have to say because they were able to resolve the issue with the firefighters, the union, and it has really helped repair the relationship between the board and the labor union. Because now they have 4 incremental years of raises, and they were still able to get very good insurance. And I think that was a great thing that happened, and you should let me say it.
You should sit with Mr.
you
Dietz
just
next time,
did.
make sure it's on his report. Yeah, that's it,
Okay.
hit him. Okay. Next thing we have is council clerk's report,
Nothing.
county solicitor's report.
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait.
Can we get what? Motion to adjourn.
Motion made.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
adjourn.
Counselor, I think you won tonight. Did he really? Oh, he did. Hey, Tom, real quick, I'm sorry I didn't get your message until after.